wizard.
Hi everybody, I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood, and today I want to talk to you about how you figure out how much stain or sealer you're going to need for your deck. This is a big question that a lot of people run into, and we use that keep it simple method, and we're going to show you that today. So we have to figure out the total square footage of the wood. Pretty easy when we get to the floor of a deck, and I'll show you that. So if we were to have a deck, and for this exercise, okay, I'm not going to put the steps or anything on there. So we'll just call this the house. Sorry, I'm left-handed and I'm running across in front of you. But this is a 20, we'll call it a 20 by 30 square foot deck. So 30 foot across, 20 feet away from the house. That means it's 20 on this side as well. Now when we want to figure out the square footage of the floor, it's really 20 times 30. And that gives us 600 square feet. Okay, and that's on the floor of the deck. Now the hard part is the railings. So let's talk about the railings a little bit. When we talk about railings, this is one baluster, and depending on where you are in the country, spindle or picket. So in the southeast, we get a lot of people who call them pickets. But whether you call them pickets, spindles, or balusters, it doesn't make any difference. Let's just figure they're about 1 inch around each way. And when we do that, again, I'm just keeping it simple. The space between the balusters are code 4 inch on center. So if there's 4 inches in between, and there's 1 inch on each side, what if we just opened this up and made it flat? It would fill in that 4 inch gap. So my point is, let's treat the railing as if it was all solid. Okay, so when we do that, what we would do is now we're going to add up for the railings. And we would add up 20 plus 20 is 40, plus 30 is 70 linear feet. And this is the railing. So we have 70 linear feet. So we have the length, but now we need the height. So what are we going to figure on the height? Well, a lot of railings are about 42 inches. They're all above 36, but one of the things we don't include usually is our rim joist or fascia. It could be a 2x8 or a 2x10, 2x12. We do a lot with 2x10s and 12s. So we have to figure the fascia in as well. So what I do is we figure it out 4 feet, okay? So 4 feet high. And when we do that, it's 70 times 4, which is 280. That's our square foot on one side. Now we have to multiply it times 2 for both sides, and that gives us 560 square feet. So we have 560 square feet on our railings and 600 square feet on our floor. If we add those together, we get 1,160 total square feet. Now we have something we can work with when it comes to figuring out how much stain or sealer we're going to need. We're going to use an industry standard, which is about 150 square foot per gallon. And that's what you should get your yield. Doesn't matter whether you're spraying, brushing, rolling, however you're applying, the manufacturers will recommend 150 square foot per gallon in a lot of instances. To be specific, always check whichever product you're using, check the manufacturer recommendations to make sure you're putting on the correct amount. But if we use the 150 square foot per gallon, or 150, we would divide that. 1160 by 150 square feet. And when we do that, we come out to 7.73 gallons. And that is about how many gallons we're going to need to stain this 20 by 30 deck. Now all you have to do is change this. If it was 10, if you had a smaller deck, it was 10 by 20, 10 by 12. then your railings, you do the same thing. And this is how we do it. And we figured out the same way here. Now here's what happens. If you have this 1,160 square foot deck, as we explained, what happens is 7.73 is 8 gallons. If you're buying by the gallons, you know about how much you should need. If you're a contractor or someone else watching this and you're buying things in 5-gallon pails, even a homeowner, if you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever you're getting it, you get the 5-gallon pails, you'll want to get 10 gallons. Never get 5 because you'll be too short. And say, we'll get a couple gallons extra. Get to 10 gallons. If you ever have touch-ups or need anything, you scratch it, furniture, whatever, replace a board. It's always good to have the same product moving forward, because if you go and buy something a year, 2 years later when you're trying to fix a board or a couple boards, that is going to appear different than what you already had. This is originally what you put on. It'll still be the same tone and color that you originally put on, so it'll match better. So that's how you would get the square footage. Now, the reason I go back and I did the 280, which is 70 linear feet, again, 20 plus 20 plus 30 is 70. 4 feet high is 280 times 2 is 560. If you have the lattice or any skirting around the deck that needs to be stained, you would add that as well. So what happens is, if this is 4 feet on the inside times 70, that's 280, but on the outside, say the lattice and the railing is 6 feet or 8 feet, that's what you would use. So it would be 8 times 70, you get 560 on the one side, and then add the 280 for the inside. So I hope that's not too confusing. That's one of the things that's really tough when you start talking about how you figure out your square footage, and to be exact, it kind of gets a little confusing. This hopefully will kind of get through that a little bit, but you want to make sure you account for all your total wood when you're figuring out your square footage. And the hardest thing is trying to figure out that railing or the linear square footage and how that converts over. You always want to convert over to square footage, because that will tell you how many gallons you're going to need. Otherwise, it's just a shot in the dark and it's guesswork. Whether you're DIY or a contractor, this keeps you from having too much product left over, or buying too much, or not buying enough, which is worse. Sometimes what happens is, if you don't buy enough and you have to go get an extra gallon or 2 gallons, it's going to look different because it's not from the same group or the same pails and so forth. So that can become an issue. One of the things we always do is something called boxing, where we mix it all together, everything we're going to use, so it's consistent. And we do that on a broad basis when we know how many gallons we're going to use. If you were to use 5-gallon pail and then realize you need another gallon or 2, that gallon may not match what was in the 5-gallon, number one. Number two, if you stain or seal on a cloudy day and it's 60 degrees and it's a sunny degree the next day at 80 degrees, they're going to dry at different rates. It's going to appear different, especially when they're right next to each other. So the key is always have more than you need. Don't have less. Round up. Don't worry about it. If you ever need anything for repairs or replacement, you have that. You scratch the deck, anything, it's all ready for the future. Hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. Hopefully this will help you figure out how much stain or sealer you're going to need for your next project, whether it's a deck, or it can even be a fence too. You can do the same thing. You figure out your square footage and your yield, and you should be in good shape. I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood, and hopefully this video helped you figure out how much stain or sealer product you're going to need for your project. Thank you for watching.